Really quick, before we jump into this video, just want to give you the same spoiler warning as the previous video. If you haven't hit at least chapter 8, this could disrupt, consider this to be spoilers. I don't think it's game breaking and that it wouldn't ruin your experience of the game, but figured I'd be courteous because it is a little bit of a change of pace. And even though the subject matter is not about spoilers, you're bound to, you will see stuff if you haven't made it that far into the game. Anyway, let's jump into it. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Purplatypus is the name. Say hi to the kitty. He's got a camo shirt on. He's having a good time. Today, we are talking about the samurai and kind of want to give an overview of the job. And I decided when I do these overviews, one thing I want to do is start kind of giving you what are some skills from other jobs that you're going to want to grab if you can, which you can, of course, and kind of how good the job is overall. What it's best suited for, and then what are some other skills that synergize with it. Now, the samurai, I think, has maybe the best overall skill set in the game in terms of its abilities here. Basically, every single one of these abilities is really good, although some of them kind of outclass other ones later on, right? Like, I mean, but not like Shadow Slash is maybe the one that you don't really use that much later on, because like Shadow Cleave and Shadow Dance tend to be a bit better. But for the most part, all of these other abilities have reasons you would want to use them and could be very, very good. The only downside with the Samurai, kind of as a quick TLDR, is it does have the lowest agility of any job in the game. And I think you can totally offset this with a character in your party that, like with the substitution jutsu character, where you could basically have her replace her turns with this, so he actually has the highest agility. But you could also instead, which is probably going to be more meta, I guess you wanted to say, would be to take like his 7 best abilities and move that over to a job that has similar attack stats, like maybe just a Pyro Dancer, right? Because a Pyro Dancer is still going to be a little bit faster, but you are losing a lot of defense. The Samurai has really, really good defense as well. So I'm not sure. It having the lowest agility makes me think that it's probably not good as a job that you keep, but as a job that you level up and use the skills of, it's absolutely insane, and it's a 10 out of 10 on the cool factor. So let's kind of go over the skills here, and then I'll show you the stuff. We'll use it in battle, kind of get an idea of what it does, and then I'll kind of look at some other skills that I think you should grab from other classes and throw on here. So the whole kit is very, very self-contained, which is awesome, and it has two main themes with a third sub-theme. So the main thing you're trying to do is get bleed on your enemies, make your enemies bleed, and then use these shadow abilities to do insane damage to the bleeding enemies, right? Shadow Slash does great damage if they're bleeding. Shadow Cleave does additional damage if they're bleeding. And Shadow Dance does additional damage if they're bleeding. So those are basically your 3 payoff abilities. So in addition to your payoffs, you've got basically the enablers here. We have got the Wind of, you've got the Pine Bamboo Plum, and you've got the Cyclone, and then actually what is really cool is the one of the super abilities here, may inflict bleed, and it does damage to a large area, may inflict bleed, but it also applies your weapons attributes. That is pretty darn good, because you could even have your weapons attributes, this one does it too, right? And so does this one. Usually when you see applies your weapons attributes, that's pretty good, because that means you could put, either a chance to give yourself a buff, can give you a chance to debuff the enemy or paralyze them, or just do extra damage to XYZ, or even just a chance to inflict bleed, So these are things that are pretty good, I think, in general. So as far as the enablers go, I don't find the Wind ability to be that good. It's fine, and it's definitely good rate when you become the Samurai. The Cyclone is just a better version of the Wind ability. Obviously, it takes more MP, but it hits more enemies, does more damage. And then I actually find against single targets, like I'm sure Essence of Mind's Eye is good, but it's not MP efficient. I find the Pine Bamboo Plum to be very good, because this is like a multi-target thing, but it does 3 swings, and if there's only one enemy, it'll hit them all 3 times. And it's a guaranteed critical if you get the action prompt. So It's great chance of afflicting bleed because I think you get 3 chances at it. Critical if the action prompt is successful. Great damage, it afflicts bleed. So if you're fighting a boss, this is usually what I use to try to set up my shadow dances and stuff. Now, the third kind of sub-theme is the bow. It doesn't really necessarily synergize with the rest of the kit, but they're incredibly strong abilities, all of them. They all start at heavy damage. This is a heavy attack, a heavy gun, you know, piercing attack with 15 MP. This is very, very strong. So, like, for at least this is like maybe the strongest 15 MP damaging ability. It hits super hard. Burning Arrow at 20 MP for only 5 MP more. It's a piercing attack with fire, and it does a pretty decent size AoE. Not huge, but decent size. You'll likely hit a couple enemies. Does great amounts of damage. And then finally, actually, Raining Arrow is pretty cool. So this does, like, I don't remember how many hits. I think it's 5 hits randomly among all targets and has a chance to lower their attack. So against one target, I still think this hits all 5 times, which is still really, really good for damage. I don't typically use it for that because I tend to use like the Shadow Dance and stuff, but this is kind of an AoE. And even though it is cool, I think I would probably end up using it more against, this would be more a positional thing. Like if there's, let's say 3 enemies, 2 or 3 enemies, and they're kind of far enough apart where I can't use my other AoE abilities, this is probably what I would do because this is going to hit them all just a different amount of times. So overall, these are just very, very powerful abilities, right? You've got enablers, you've got payoffs, and then you've got a little bit of utility. Not much. This is basically an all-in damage dealing class. The only other ability here that isn't damage dealing is this one right here, right? The Glory Awaits. It's an AoE attack and crit chance up. This is really good, actually. Even this is really good. The only issue with it, the slowest agility character in the game, typically, and probably your main damage dealer, doesn't want to be using this in combat. This is a really good ability if you level up your healer, your support up to level 12, and then bring that over to your healer's class so that they could use this. Because this is a very good ability. It's just not something that they really, the samurai himself wants to be using because you want to be doing damage, in my opinion. Like if you do this for 3 turns to get the buff AoE, then you've just missed out on 3 turns of damage. Yeah, you are doing damage in a sense because you're giving every blah, 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 blah. Just give this to your healer and they could use this on the turns they don't need to heal. But it is very good. So these are, yeah, everything about the samurai is fantastic besides that really low agility. And I think in the early game that doesn't matter at all. I am thinking as we get higher and higher level and get into the higher difficulties that the low agility will hurt more because enemies will keep getting stronger and they'll start going first in combat. And if they all get to go first in combat and you don't get a chance to weaken them, like this could be pretty rough. So maybe you can compensate with this with a team comp. But I do think like if you were doing a solo character run, which isn't a thing, I guess. But the samurai I don't think is a great character specifically because of that agility. But everything else is really, really good too. I think Kasuga would make a Kiryu would make a really good samurai potentially because he has that passive benefit where if you do a perfect guard, you can counterattack physically. And I think that would just be really, really good in general. It would mean, you know, you wouldn't feel as punished for the low agility at least. But so what are some of the other abilities that I think are really, really worth getting? So the first one that comes to mind, again, and this is probably a class I would probably end up playing as a pyro dancer, honestly, and then take all of the samurai abilities because I think the samurai has better abilities than the pyro dancer, but I do kind of like the stat layout of the pyro dancer more, right? A little bit more HP. And a little bit more agility. Maybe I would do it with just a linebacker. You're losing a lot. At this point, it would probably come down to the legendary weapon that I like the most. But some of the abilities that I really like. First one that comes to mind are a lot of the chef abilities work really good with the samurai because the chef also has a sub-theme of inflicting bleed. And what's important about these is that, so these don't actually, so there's kind of a trade-off, right? If you take a look at like this one, this applies your weapon tributes and may affect bleed, applies your weapons tributes and may inflict bleed. Same with this one, right? May inflict bleed and applies your weapons tributes. But these ones do not do anything with your weapons attributes, which is a downside, but these have a high chance of inflicting bleed. So I tend to think these are actually better. Like these have really decent damage as well. But like, remember, these abilities are your enablers. You don't like, there are some times where you might really want to have a you might really want to use this ability, Pine, Bamboo, Plum, because maybe your weapons attribute is something that you're really interested in and a part of the fight, because maybe you can inflict bleed while also giving yourself a buff. Like sometimes you can give yourself a crit rate up or things like that. That could be good. But as far as actually just landing the bleed, the sashimi slice and the cutlery crash, these are all pretty good. I would probably stick with the low level one here, 15 MP, just get the bleed on them and then start triggering that damage, right? And then they also have the, I think it's this one, right? Yeah, this is 45, which is a lot, but damages enemies with a high chance of inflicting bleed. It is a physical ability, so this will be pretty good as well. At that point, if you're going 45 MP though, I would probably come back and just start using my 60 MP Mind's Eye, because this one also does the weapons attribute. It's not a really high chance, but it is AoE. So that's one that I think is really worth it. Is probably just, and that's also at level 1. The sashimi slice. I think this ability, I always run it on my samurai, and it's usually the enabler I use against single target bosses, because right now I'm just using a high stat weapon with not a weapon attribute that I particularly care about. So besides that, I mean, there's always, you know, my thing is, like, there's a lot of good abilities in the game, right? You know, you have a chance to sleep enemies, chance to paralyze, you hit a bunch of enemies. I don't find these to be particularly useful in the samurai style, right? Because your main thing is you're dealing damage, and your ability, that means you have specific abilities that want to deal this damage, right? You want to be using the shadow dance to basically deal damage. So you don't have a lot of abilities that you want to use that are outside of the samurai kit, in my opinion. But another one I think is really good is the pyro dancer. Basically just kind of throwing like a soul capture on, you know, it's good heavy damage. You already have a really high physical, and this gives you a little bit of self-reliance. You could do damage while healing yourself, which is pretty darn good. Especially if like your character is the only one that's low. Instead of having to have your healer take a turn to heal you, you could get just a little bit less damage while healing yourself up to full, and then your healer can continue buffing people instead. So that's pretty good. And then I would, you know, the other more powerful version, I'd probably just run one or the other for slots. I probably wouldn't run them both. And then there was one more, right? Yeah, like Essence of the Masked Medium, probably not what I'm going to do. So I'd probably get the two abilities that let you absorb HP. And that's, again, mostly as a backup. There is a little bit about the, I think it's the Hut Hike could be good. You take reduced damage for a few turns and a chance to make enemies rage. The more you attack, the more damage you deal next turn. This is actually one of the few abilities that is synergistic with low agility, right? Because the linebacker actually has really high agility, which is just, I guess that makes sense. I would have thought of it as being a tank, but not really. So they have surprising speed, as it says there. I actually think this ability is pretty good, specifically with the samurai, because it just, you take reduced damage, your turns already come few and far between, and so this is kind of a way to make up. You can kind of, it seems like you can kind of semi-protect your team, right? Because you have a chance to make them rage, which makes them target like you. And then while they're hitting you, you also will then do more damage. So this is a great way. If you don't have like a shinobi style character, I forget what it's called. It's not the shinobi, but you know, it's the female ninja. Then I think this is actually a really good ability to have on them. It does suck to kind of use it on the first turn of combat. You're going to want to know if you're going for a long fight. And I probably wouldn't use it if there's a lot of AoE, but I think it's like you just throw this ability on, and I think that could be really good, especially if you want to stay in the samurai class. If you're going to switch to a pyro dancer and get a little more agility, and you know, you have that healing built in with your self-sufficient, you may not care as much about the reduced damage from that ability or trying to tank because you have low defenses. But yeah, those are kind of the ones that I would consider. I don't really like anything in the breaker or the host that I saw specifically for this. Again, you don't want to be spending your attacks trying to boost yourself, because you're trying to, you could have someone else apply bleed, but even in the situation where the target starts combat bleeding, you still don't want to be using these. You want to be using your payoffs. You want to be using the shadow cleaves and stuff to deal a lot of damage. As far as the host, I mean, again, this is like great for supports, but nothing that I'm interested in this class. And as far as Namba specifically, there's nothing really Namba brings to the table that's particularly good here that I saw. I just really liked visually having Namba here. The Samurai does have actually one pretty big weakness, though. They don't have a single grapple ability. Unless one of these are grapple. I don't remember off the top of my head, but none of these are grapple. So having a character that has grapple, so Namba's probably not the best at this, but even having like, why can't I see all my characters? I guess I just can't see them all right now. Oh, wait, I bet if I come in here, I can, though. Party jobs. Here we go. Like, Koichi is probably, Adachi is probably really good because he has a lot of grapple built into his kit, right? Ichiban could probably make a good samurai. I don't like the idea of him raging, though, because if he dies, right, you lose, you have to reload. So I tend to, like, kind of keep that away. But even this guy has like a built-in grapple here and stuff like that with scrub down. And that's something you might want to use sometimes. Grapples aren't usually very good, but sometimes you kind of need them. But all right, let's go ahead and take a look at the samurai and actually what he does. Let's see if we can find combat here. I don't know why I'm looking at the map for combat. All right, let's see how well I edited this video. I don't normally edit videos, but I got a phone call in the middle of it, so we're going to check it out here. I'm always afraid of walking around that I might find an accidentally find like a 2-hour cutscene story progression slash you know, side quest. All right, so yeah, look at Namba's really slow. He's not even the slowest of my samurais. Adachi has like 20 less agility, but with substitution jutsu, you could easily make up for that, right? Well, let's hope I put the culinary cut on. Sashimi slice, yeah. I did forget to do the, I don't have the hut, and I don't have the shadow cleave right now, I don't think, or, you know, the one that consumes. But, so, the main idea, I'm not going to use the slice. Maybe I will, but, like, I want to kind of show visually some of the abilities, what they do. So, let's go ahead and do one of my favorites here. Pine Baboon Plum is probably my favorite. But with 3 enemies, the Cyclone's just going to be great here. All right, well, they might be a little bit too weak here. They're level 31. What's going on here? All right, you guard. And so we can... So my whole point was to, like, all right, make them bleed. We did do, like, 600 damage. It was a lot. Don't get me wrong, but it shouldn't have been that much. Let's actually do the slice. Let's see if we can kill him. Or not kill him, you know. I'm gonna, my God. All right, those guys are punks. Let's go find a boss here. Where'd that boss go? Wasn't there someone with the crown? All right, we're just gonna fight these guys. Oh no, he does have a crown. Okay. He was just the one that was discovering us. All right. So we're gonna do the exact same thing. Substitution jutsu. Where's Namba at? There you are, hanging out in the back as always. And so he's also got a really good, so the Cyclone's probably the best for this kind of group, right? Once you have something this big, if you're trying to poison or trying to bleed a lot of enemies, this is probably the best. I don't typically try, I usually use them as single target damage dealers, but because there's a lot of good AoE damage dealers. But there we go. You see, we got to bleed on 3 of them just like that. This is a kind of a real fight, so I am going to treat this with a little bit of respect here. At least besides, we'll keep the boss around, I guess. Can I actually... I don't know why I don't have any buffs on her right now. I need her to get like a bunch of buffs, because right now she has debuffs, and debuffs are usually kind of not that good. Yeah, you know what? This is a showcase. We're gonna go ahead. I don't think we're in any danger of losing here, so we'll give this to Namba. Again, if you have this kind of setup where you could just keep giving him extra turns, I think he really starts to like pop off. But let's go and do a shadow dance, right? This is the extreme attack power, and this is only 35 MP. You could do this many times. I mean, that was 1,600 damage. That was that's probably some of the most I've ever done. I think that might be my current record, actually. Which is kind of crazy. Fix the hair, that's a heal. Or is that an attack up? That's an attack up. So let's give it one more. I don't know if I have enough MP for any more attacks. But truly just like, maybe honestly, the Sujimancer was my favorite class, but the Samurai has been so fucking cool. All right, let's see how much this does. Oh, he doesn't have enough HP, does he? Well, let's see. Okay, I think that did 713. I think it wouldn't have shown. I don't know if it would have shown more. If that might have been how much HP he had left. But that ability needs no setup. It just goes. If they're weak, it's like insane. All right, let's have Kiryu finish this off. Spank him. Get up nice and close. There we go. There we go. All right. And actually, I think Adachi is a higher level samurai, but you know, with the way the game's current structure is, that is a bit of a, you know, what am I gonna do about it, right? Anyway, that is the samurai overview for this video. I hope it was an enjoyable video. If you liked it, leave me a like. If you didn't like it, you could leave me a dislike, or you could like it anyway. Just be reverse psychology. Maybe that'll work. Yeah, also leave a comment. Let me know. And that's it. The Purplatypus is Purplatypus. See you guys on the flip-flops. Bye.